Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where you meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gothberg. I am going to introduce to you some of my friends from the Women's International Shipping and Trading Association, WISTA. I usually meet them at least once a year at the WISTA International AGM and conference, which I have attended for the last 10 or 12 years. I used to be the president for WISTA Sweden in 2004 to 2008, and when you are the president of the National WISTA Association, you are representing your country at the WISTA International umbrella organization. And the AGM is usually organized by one of the national WISTA associations. This year, the WISTA International AGM and conference took place in Istanbul, first week of October. And you will be meeting shipping business women from different countries with various occupations within the maritime industry. Before we start, I want to tell you something about how women network. One of the ladies from the Netherlands always brings her husband to the conferences. And the first time I met him was at the WISTA International Conference in Singapore. And I sat down with him. He's a logistical professor from the Netherlands. And I asked him, Fritz, why do you attend these conferences for the WISTA International? And he said, it's so much fun to watch these ladies network because they start by talking. And they talk and they talk and they talk and they share knowledge and they want to know more. And then they run out of time. So they need to exchange business cards to continue the conversation. When meeting men at conferences, they all start by handing out business cards. And then they decide who they want to talk to. So it's a completely different ballgame. And I really enjoy the way women do their networking. I like that idea. So I wanted to share it with you. And the more I have thought about it, the more true I think it is. Women have a different way of networking and sharing knowledge. In this episode, you will be meeting Teresa Peacock, Managing Director of Spinnaker Recruitment Services. Teresa and I speak about the challenges. Teresa and I have a chat about the skills of the people in the industry and how recruitment is done, the lack of females in the shipping industry, and what could be done about that. I hope you will enjoy listening to Teresa and me chatting along at the WISTA conference in Istanbul.
My name is Teresa Peacock and I am Managing Director of Spinnaker Recruitment Services.
What is your background?
Well, I have only been in shipping for 7 years, which may sound like a while, but most people I meet have been in shipping forever. I've been in recruitment, though, for about 30 years. And in my 20s, I bought a recruitment business, ran it for 10 years, and then sold it. Then I was thinking, what shall I do with my life now? And I happened to meet Phil Parry, who is the chairman of Spinnaker Global. I really liked Phil. I got on very well with him and he intrigued me and the shipping industry intrigued me. I was totally unaware of the size of the shipping industry and it just fascinated me. And I couldn't believe that I'd reached my early 40s without being aware of such a massive industry. So when he asked me to join his company and help them grow, I jumped at the opportunity to do so. So I fell into shipping by accident, really.
Like most people do.
Yes.
Either you fall into it or you inherit it.
Through your family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you find so interesting and fascinating?
That it was just so large and that we are so reliant on it without being aware of it. When I found out, for example, that 90% of the things around us have been transported by a vessel, I found it difficult to comprehend. I found it difficult to comprehend that it was not in the media more and that the jobs in shipping were not more prominent because we all know about telecommunications and IT and yet it's so important in the maritime industry. We don't hear about the big players, the important people in the industry at all, unfortunately, unless there's an accident. So that really intrigued me about the shipping industry.
So now when you're working with recruitment, who are your clients? Is it ship owners, ports?
Okay, well, we work with everybody in the maritime industry, from ship owners to ship managers, class societies, membership bodies, law firms, P&I clubs, insurers. On the commercial side, charterers and brokers and traders. So it's everything that surrounds the vessel. Big clients, small clients, medium-sized clients. And I sort of like to think that I become a bit of a bridge between the candidates and the clients, so I can introduce people to one another. I do quite a lot of headhunting, so I work with clients, and then I meet people and I think that person would be perfect for that company. So make introductions that way. Also within Spinnaker, we have HR consulting. It's a small business that's grown quite a lot over the last 7 or 8 years. It's now big enough that we've appointed an MD for that particular part of the business. They work with companies, advising them on succession planning, profiling, how to recruit the right person, working with their job descriptions. And we have an HR association, and they focus on benchmarking salaries. So we know that people in the industry are being paid their worth, so we can benchmark across the globe.
If we look upon the candidates then, where do they come from?
Oh gosh, all over.
Are they already within the industry, or do you find them outside?
A bit of both. Some people outside of the industry have never considered the maritime industry. So in my general recruitment life, I meet lots of people, and sometimes I will drag them into the maritime industry. But generally speaking, most people are already in the industry and are moving within the industry, or coming up through qualifying, new graduates qualifying through the industry. So we do a lot of work with universities and schools promoting the industry generally.
So if we talk about the gender then,
oh gosh.
do you see more women nowadays compared to earlier?
Actually, there are more women now, but they are not in any significant numbers, unfortunately. And we tend to find that the women in the industry are either quite junior or own their own business or own their own consultancy. There's not an awful lot of females at that senior management level within the big organisations. It tends to be predominantly male, unfortunately. But we're doing our best to promote equality.
We're all standing up for the women, and we're presently at the WISTA conference in Istanbul in Turkey. And it's going to be amazing again to meet all these competent shipping business women.
Yes, it is. And I've done some market mapping on females in the industry, so I can see where they are and what level they're at. That's proving to be quite an interesting piece of work. And the Davidson report was aiming to get 30% of females on boards for the FTSE 100. And I think that if we could try and really push that throughout the maritime industry, that would help. I think we do need to look at pushing for that more senior management rather than lots of females being at that middle or junior level.
How do you see the future for shipping in general?
Well, I'm ever optimistic. I think females will play a part in the industry more and more. And as I've said previously, this isn't a female issue. This is a business issue, because businesses are ruling out half of the workforce. And unfortunately, we do need the men. Unfortunately, we do need the men to promote women in the industry for us. It's too difficult a battle just to do it on our own. So we are trying to welcome men into our fold as much as possible.
Yeah, I think it's about defining the men that actually wants us to be promoted and do it together. It's the only way. And I meet a lot of men who has realized the power behind having both men and women in their teams.
Definitely. It adds a different dynamic. When you have a boardroom full of men, they will be thinking as men. And they'll be thinking the way half the population think. That's why you need a mix at the boardroom, because that adds that different level of thinking, and they complement each other.
And it's not enough with only one woman who becomes the hostage, more or less.
Yes.
Because then you can show up the woman at the board,
Yes.
which isn't good enough, in my view.
Yeah.
But what else? I think about the future, like there are talks about unmanned ships and the digitalization and things like that. How do you view that?
Well, that's something that's, yes, within the last couple of years they've been talking about unmanned ships. Actually, the level of crew on board these vessels are very few. So I can't ever see totally unmanned. I really can't. This is too big an asset to leave in the hands of a computer. There's got to be people on board still. And some of these huge vessels have single-figure crew on board. So it may reduce slightly, but it will never do away for the need for crew in its entirety. But that will be an exciting development. And then you'll need more people ashore to make sure that the computations are working well.
Yeah, and I think it's a paradigm. It's shifting now. So it will be done in a different way in the future. But that also means that the people on shore will need other skills. So we will have other skills thrown into our industry that we haven't got now. Like, for instance, computering and, like all these people that should be in control of the unmanned ship out there on the sea.
Yes, definitely. And when you look at 30 years ago when I first went into recruitment and we didn't have a computer on our desk, we didn't have a fax machine. Computers come in and you think, how is that going to affect the industry?
Now you're revealing your age.
I know, I'm sorry.
That.
But yes, but we still have lots of people in the field of recruitment, and computers haven't done away with that. So they won't do away with people in the maritime industry either.
And also, I ask every guest on the show to hear that the shipping industry are looked upon as an invisible industry. Mm-hmm. How do you think we should change that? How do we become more visible?
I think it's got to be through promotion at the schools level. Sea Vision are doing some really good work at the moment, getting out to schools in the UK. And I know that there are other similar organisations around the world. I think Denmark has a very good programme. I think it's got to be at the schools level. Maybe if we promote more than just the bad news, but then journalists only want to promote the bad news. So I think that's going to be a very difficult one to do.
That is one of the reasons why I have started this podcast, because I think then we are in charge of our own message to the world. We can tell the real story, even if it's so-called boring and not something on the first page of the papers.
Yes. And I think the problem is that the public doesn't have a touch point with the maritime industry. For all other industries, the consumer is direct. But here, the maritime industry sits behind all of the big producers and all of the big retailers, so they are kept in the background.
I agree with you. Thank you very much for taking the time. Who do you think I should interview the next? Who would you be curious to listen to?
Kathy Stanzel is an interesting lady. She runs into Tanko, and that's very much a male-dominated world. She was WISTA personality a couple of years ago, but I think she's a very interesting lady to hear from. And it'd be interesting to hear how she got her voice heard in a room full of men.
She's at the top of my list.
Okay.
I have spoken to her.
Okay.
So when I go to London, I will try and meet with her.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
And hope to see you soon again.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. What do you think about the equality issue in the shipping industry? Are we lacking women? So many people either fall into the shipping industry or they are there because their family is within the industry. Maybe we should start trying to package the world that we live in a more attractive way and then start selling it. There will be a race for the next generation. Every industry will be looking for the young people. And how do we compete with the telecom industry or the pharmaceutical industry or anything? I think it's really the time to think about how we promote ourselves and our industry. This was a short episode. Tomorrow you will get another one. It's my Christmas gift to my listeners. Until tomorrow. Thank you for listening. I love to see you spread the word about the Shipping Podcast in your social media channels.